In this video, I'm going to talk about the E versus K diagram obtained in the case of Kronig-Penney model. In my previous video on band theory of solids, I have described how we get the Kronig-Penney equation P sin alpha A by alpha A plus cos alpha A equal to cos Ka. And there we have plotted the graph and finally found that there are some discontinuities in the values of alpha A, and that results in the energy gaps. Please recall we had alpha A, which is representing the energy. Why? Because alpha is after all root 2 me by h cross square. So we have seen that the energy of the electron is having some discontinuities, right? And there we have seen some bands, energy bands existing inside a solid. Now we'll try to analyze the graph in terms of E versus K, right? So if you try to sketch the E versus K, let me erase this. It is going to be something like this. So in the E versus K diagram, we are going to see this kind of parabolic structure, right? Of course, we can see energy gaps, right? So if you further extend it this way and that way, you can see many more. This is actually the K, and we can see and convince that at this point, which is plus pi by A, and this is of course 0, and this point is of course minus pi by A, we have got some discontinuities. In the same way, we can also see plus 2 pi by A, and then similarly you have 3 pi by A, and so on. I am not going to plot all of them. I am going to plot up to minus 2 pi by A because the space is not sufficient over there. So if you restrict up to 2 pi by A, what you are going to see is, see, this horizontal line shows a gap in energy because this region, which is falling between the dashed line and the solid line, is one allowed band. Just above this, we had some gaps. Energy has some gaps because alpha has some gaps. So this gap is what you call as a forbidden gap. After that, once again, the curve is going to take this kind of curves, and so on. Once again, at 2 pi by A, it is going to see similar curves, right? So there is a scheme called reduced zone scheme. See, these are different zones. And please recall the fact that we have cos Ka on the right hand side of the equation. This cos Ka can also be written as cos Ka plus 2 pi or 2n pi, with n taking values 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So clearly we can conclude that cos K or A, or let me write a different way, I'll take K term to outside so that I can write this as 2n pi. I'll take A term to outside, so I can write A into K plus 2n pi by A. Please pay attention. So here we have intentionally taken A outside only to see what is this K. So here we wrote some K. K can be transformed as some K plus or minus 2n pi by A. Please remember, I can also write plus or minus because cos is a periodic function of 2 pi plus 2 pi or minus 2 pi, or any integral multiple of plus or minus 2 pi results in the same. So I can write any K as K plus 2n pi by A, and for the simplest case with n equal to 1, I can transform K as K plus or minus 2 pi by A. Please remember this. It means no matter whether you write K or K plus or minus 2 pi by A, they are going to be the same. Let me explain this. What is the value of this for this curve? It is actually 2 pi by A. As we know, this is one K. Let me say K dash. This K dash, let me call this as K dash, can be transformed as the same k plus or minus 2 pi by a. So no matter whether I put this curve here or if I shift it either plus 2 pi by a right hand side or minus 2 pi by a left hand side, it is going to be the same. So please look at this piece, and if I shift the entire piece, because it is a k is a periodic value of plus or minus 2 pi by a, so I can shift it through 2 pi by a. As we know, this is plus pi by a, this is minus pi by a, the gap is 2 pi by a, right? So I can move this graph either to the left hand side through 2 pi by a or to the right hand side through the same 2 pi by a. I can move it further. It means as we are having pi by a here, so I can put the same graph at 3 pi by a. Of course, I can't show it here. So at 3 pi by a also I can move it. So it is allowed. Even multiples of that also is allowed. So what I can do is I can simply pull it. If I just draw the same, just it's a replica. So I'm simply pulling the graph towards this side. And same logic is applicable if you talk about this graph. See, for this point it is minus pi by a. So you can equally shift it through plus pi by a, plus 2 pi by a. So when you shift this curve towards the other side, so it takes the similar form like this. So this curve moves over here. Please pay attention. So no matter whether we draw the parabolas like this or intentionally I'm erasing this, I'm intentionally erasing the portions. You may pause the video. So here you can convince that these two are one and the same. Absolutely, they are the same. So no matter whether you draw this as split parabolas or you draw it like this, it is going to be the same. Similarly, if you go further, when you shift the higher order split parabolas, once again you are going to get bands of this sort. And this region lying between plus pi by a to minus pi by a is sometimes referred as plus pi by a to minus pi by a is referred as first Brillouin zone. Brillouin zone. He was a mathematician. Brillouin zone. So this first Brillouin zone, like that you can have second Brillouin zone, third Brillouin zone also, which is a topic beyond the scope of our syllabus. We are not going to discuss. So these are the things which you can understand. So most of the times you might see this kind of graphs in semiconductor physics. So these graphs are only because of the reduced zone scheme. See, this is sometimes referred as reduced zone scheme. So if you want to describe the E versus K diagram of any solid, you can have this kind of setup. So here what happens is, assume that this is the empty college with some sections of BTech or any other course. You want to fill this college with sections, with students, sorry. If you want to fill the classes with students, what you do is you simply get the first student, fill it here. First seat is filled. Next allowed seat here. Next allowed seat here, 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 like that. So if you have completed the band, after you fill this state, last electron has got filled here and there are no more seats. It's something like one section. Now you will go to the next section. So there you will start filling it like this, like this, like this, and you are going to proceed further and further, right? So this is the way you fill the energy bands inside the solid. Now, in this way, the bands keep on getting filled, and let us suppose that this is the topmost and this is the just below the topmost energy band. Then the last band is what you call as the valence band. Suppose if there are no electrons in this case, I mean, assume that this band is empty at absolute zero, and assume that only electrons are here at absolute zero. So this is what you call as valence band. And when you heat the sample and when you bring it to room temperature, some of the electrons will leave this side, the Fermi Dirac distribution function, FD function. So when you raise the temperature of the sample, some of the states gets evacuated and they will be occupied over there. So this becomes the conduction band and this becomes the valence band. So whichever got filled at absolute zero, that is whichever level, that is the topmost level, got filled at absolute zero is what you call as valence band. But at room temperature, that need not be the band. Even the above bands might have filled because of the rise in temperature, and those top level bands will be called as conduction bands, and lower one, which is filled at absolute zero, is what you call as valence band, right? So this is regarding the things which are getting filled. and I'll explain the next concept, which is the effective mass of the electron. I'm just revealing you the certain things. In your earlier classes, you might have studied that if you look at any band, holes and electrons will be there. So usually holes will be there on the top of the band. See, these are the edges of the band. So this is one band, this is other band. Let us say this is the first band and this is the second band. Second is the topmost field, let us say. So if you have any band and if you are filling it with the electrons, the topmost electrons, I mean in a band, the topmost energy electrons will behave like holes. That's why you say holes will be there on the top of the valence band. And similarly, the bottom of any band, if you imagine this as another band, this is the bottom. So here all the bottom ones will behave just like normal electrons. So these are electrons, whereas these are behaving just like holes. This concept will be clear once if I talk about the effective mass of the electron. I'm going to erase this. Please pause. See, this concept is purely mathematical concept. So you cannot imagine mass as something which is going to negative, because you can't feel it. When you weigh something, you will obviously get a positive mass, but it is a rather surprising result. So it's a purely mathematical concept. You cannot compare it with any reality, but this is happening in reality inside the given solids. So we just treat it as a pure mathematical concept. You know, in quantum mechanics, electron is dealt as a wave, because everything in quantum mechanics is a wave, matter wave. So this matter wave is described in several ways, right? So let me list out certain things. So electron inside a solid, I am taking this electron as a wave. So if it is represented as a wave in quantum mechanics, right? So that wave, so electron's energy I am writing now. Electron, if it is a wave, electron's energy, total energy, I'll write this as E. E is equal to h cross omega. Of course, this is coming from h nu, which is equivalent to h by 2 pi into 2 pi nu, and you know 2 pi nu is nothing but omega. So h by 2 pi is h cross. So we can write the energy as E equal to h cross omega. Please remember this. And of course, this nu is the frequency. You may ask how we got this. Actually, you can use the Max Planck's hypothesis. If a particle with, if a wave with frequency nu is moving, definitely its energy will be E. Total energy E is given like this. So if you treat the electron like a particle, like a wave, it is going to have this much energy. Please keep it aside. So we are going to proceed in a purely mathematical manner. Please don't question why we are doing it like this. So I'll do differentiation. I'll just differentiate this both sides so that I can get d of E is equal to d of h cross omega, which is nothing but h cross d omega. I'll keep this aside. I need this relation. So the electron's energy and its matter wave frequency are related like this. Now I'll define, and actually I'm not defining, I'm just recalling a fact. If electron is a wave, then its matter wave's group velocity. Please don't get confused. If I am a wave, if I am a particle, let's say, if I am the electron, I am just moving like this. And as long as I am sitting quiet, I don't have any wave associated with me. But the moment when I start moving with high speeds, definitely there will be a matter wave that comes into picture. So this matter wave can describe my position, my momentum, every information of me is hidden inside the matter wave. So that matter wave also describes the velocity of the particle. I mean, if I am a wave, it's okay. If I am actually particle, then my velocity can be described through something of the matter wave. So here we define a parameter called matter waves of electron define group velocity. This is sometimes referred as Vg for electron. So what is this group velocity? See, it is once again a mathematical concept. Please don't break your heads. Just we'll take it as Vg is equal to d omega by dk. It is defined like that. Of course, you can check the dimension because we are talking in terms of wave. So we have a wave vector, we have a frequency omega. So you can just convince by just taking it. You know, omega is nothing but 2 pi times nu. 2 pi times nu is this, divided by k is nothing but 2 pi by lambda. You can cancel out 2 pi, and you are left with nu lambda. It's not V, it's nu. Or let me write F, frequency. So F lambda. V equal to F lambda. Is it not representing the velocity? Because frequency times wavelength is nothing but velocity of the wave. That's why I'm calling this as Vg. Right? I'm erasing this. Anyway, it's just a dimensional proof. Okay, now this is the group velocity of the electron. Now what I'll do is, in this I'll put this term, because in place of d omega, I can write 1 by h cross into dE. So it is going to be 1 by h cross dE divided by dk. So this is the group velocity equation. I'll put it aside. I need some more things. Recall, if the electron is as a particle, not as a wave. If it is a particle, then it obeys the Newton's law. When you apply the electric field from outside, let us say electric field curly E, I am taking this as electric field, be applied from outside, right? So what I'll do is, I'll calculate the force on electron. The force on the electron is actually Newton's second law, which is the rate of change of momentum, dp by dt. You know, dp by dt is the force acting on the electron. And if you write this as p as mv, you know, momentum is mass into velocity. So I'll write this as d by dt of m into vg, group velocity. Because if you want to write in terms of mass into velocity of the wave, it is m into vg. And this is also equivalent to, if you want to write the p, since p is equal to h cross k, in quantum mechanics we write like this. So if you want to write it like this, you can also write it as d by dt of h cross k, which is nothing but h cross dk by dt. Right? H cross dk by dt is nothing but the force on the electron. Force. Okay. Now you know that force is nothing but d by dt of mv. So I can do some manipulation here. So what I will do is, I'll take this Vg, and I know that Vg times mass is the momentum, and if I differentiate that with respect to time, that is going to describe this acceleration, right? So acceleration of electron is nothing but d by dt of group velocity. So if you differentiate this, you are going to get that. So what I can do is dv by dt, I know this. So it is going to be d by dt of Vg, which is nothing but 1 by h cross d by dk. As h cross is constant, I can take it outside. But the problem here is, the derivative is, this is dE dk. There are no time terms involved, but this is a dt. So I have to transform it. So what I can do is, I can use chain rule. You know, this can be written as d by dk of 1 by h cross dE by dk into dk by dt. So it is chain rule. dk gone, you are back with the d by dt of this, right? So this is equivalent to, you see, this 1 by h cross, if you pull outside, it's after all d square e over dk square. So it is 1 by h cross d square e dk square into dk by dt, right? So this dk by dt, I'm going to erase now. So this dk by dt, I can use this expression. After all, dk by dt is nothing but force divided by h cross, right? So dk by dt here is equal to force divided by h cross, right? So if you substitute it here in this expression, what you are going to get is acceleration a. I'll call this as a. So a is going to be equal to, finally, 1 by h cross d square e over dk square times dk by dt. This term, I'll write this as force on the same electron divided by h cross. Or further, I'll write this as, you see, I'll bring this acceleration here, and I'll bring the rest of the terms to the left hand side. So what I'll do is, force divided by a, acceleration, or I'll call it as a, is equal to, you have h cross here, it goes to the other side, h cross square, it comes out there, whole thing divided by d square e over dk square, second order derivative, See, this is the surprising result. What is force divided by acceleration? Is it not the mass? Right? So we are going to call this mass, not as just mass, but I'm going to erase this step. We are going to call this as effective mass of the electron. There is a reason for calling like this, because it's not the general mass, inertial mass. It is something, a theoretical mass, right? So we are calling this particular one as effective mass, and I can't denote this as m. That's why I'll use m star. So m star is going to be force by acceleration, which is nothing but this term, which is equivalent to h cross square divided by d square e over dk square. So why we did all this is, I want to know the effect of E versus K relationship on the mass of the electron. That's why I'm writing it like this, because if I plot this E versus K graph, that is going to predict some great results, right? So only for that reason the effective mass is derived, and physically it has no meaning. It's just a mathematical quantity, but once if you plot the graphs, there you can understand the concept of whole, etc., right? So this is regarding the effective mass of electron. Now I'm going to plot some more things. Before that, let me proceed further with some more mathematical terms. So it's a sequence. So first let me define the other term, and after defining certain terms and making some calculations, I'll plot a big graph, right? Please pause the video. So the next quantity is degree of freedom. I'll be calling this as Fk. What is this degree of freedom? Once again, this is purely mathematical. If you take m as the mass of free electron, see, the word free electron refers to an electron which is not bound. So you can take rest mass of electron here. Then the ratio Fk is defined as m divided by m star. Now we define the term Fk, which is the ratio of m by m star, as the effective degree of freedom, which tells us the freeness enjoyed by an electron inside the solid. So an electron may have absolute freedom, which represents Fk as 1, or the electron may have 50% freedom. In that case, you may get 0.5, or the electron may be totally bound. So it may not have any freedom. So it may not take effective part in electrical conduction. So in that case, Fk may be even 0, right? So we are just comparing it like that. That's why we are calling it as the degree of freedom. So you can also write this like this. So m by m star. So if you write it here, so it is going to be m by h cross square divided by this. So it is going to be m by h cross square into d square e over dk square, right? So this is the parameter which we call as degree of freedom. So this is the next one after effective mass. Now I'll define one more parameter, which is the number of not parameter. It's a value which we are going to derive now. It's an expression which we are going to derive now. So that is the effective number of free electrons inside an energy band. So effective number of free electrons inside a band. This is what I am going to derive now. So I know Fk. So let me write it here. So Fk is actually m by h cross square d square e over dk square. This I'll put it aside. Okay. So this is what I'm going to derive now. In order to derive this, I have to recall certain parameters. See, the value of k in Kronig-Penney model, you can clearly convince that it is equivalent to plus or minus 2n pi by a, where a is the separation between the neighboring atoms. You may recapitulate this, because in the beginning of the video itself I told that if you recall this graph, I said there are gaps at every pi by a, and the gap, if I want to consider a band, the width of the band is going to be just this width. So it is going to be just 2n pi by a. So for any nth Brillouin zone, So if I want to represent for first zone, it is going to be just 2 pi by a. I can consider directly like this. But if I want to represent it for a general case, then I should write n here, right? So for any nth zone, this is going to be the relation between k and n. Now my intention is I want to bring how many n's are there. You know, this k or n, they are actually representing the roll number of the electron. This is in terms of momentum or wave vector k, and this is in terms of some n number, right? So they are similar. That's why they are they are just differing by a multiplicative constant 2 pi by a, right? So what I'll do is, see, this k is coming from the Kronig-Penney model. So I'll differentiate this once again. So differentiation means dk is equal to plus or minus 2 pi by a. Please remember, this is a constant. It is going to be just dn, right? So I know the dk and dn. Why I'm doing all this is I want to know the effective number of free electrons. Please remember, I'll show you an example. Suppose that there is a bench on which 4 students are sitting. Please take this problem literally as a one-dimensional problem. Assume that this is around x-axis. Assume that these students are allowed to move only along x direction, no y direction and z direction are allowed. One-dimensional problem. So if you imagine that this is a table on which the students are sitting, the student 1, student 4, 2, 3 are there in the middle. This 1 and 4 have got some freedom. 1 can move this way along negative x direction. This 4 can move along positive x direction only. But if you talk about 2 and 3, literally they are bound. They can't move anywhere. They can't move either positive x direction or they can't move along positive x direction or negative x direction. So they are captured, right? So the term effective number of free electrons refers this only. See, if you imagine these 4 are the free electrons, actually all electrons need not enjoy the same freedom, right? So some electrons with more energy or because of their quantum state, they may have more freedom, and because of some other quantum state, some electrons may have lesser freedom. That's why we have defined a degree of freedom Fk term here. See, this is a classical analogy. Please don't take it too literal. Just to understand this concept, I'm giving you a crude example just with the students. So if you imagine this student sitting over there, the student, or you compare the same situation with a student just standing outside of the bench. So no benches are there. The student can move this way or that way. So if you imagine this as 100% freedom, this student can have only 50% freedom. This student number 4 can have only 50% freedom, with the remaining two having 0% and 0% freedom, right? And if I consider this class and ask how many electrons are there, imagine that these 4 are electrons. Instead of students, you call them as electrons. So there are 4 electrons, but how many are effectively free? Because only this is free with 50% freedom and this is free with 50% freedom. The two are literally bound. Though they are electrons, they don't have any freedom to take part in electrical conduction. So if you add this as 50%, 50% is nothing but 1 by 2, and this is another 1 by 2. So the sum will be just 1 by 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 by 2. So this is going to be just 1. So though there are 4 electrons, you simply say only one free electron is there. That's what we mean by effective number of free electrons inside a band. I hope you understand this with the analogy. I'm going to erase this. Okay. So if you want to know, there are how many effective number of free electrons, you should just take the number of electrons first in a band, that is this, and multiply by the effective Fk, right? So if you want to know this number, let me call this as n effective. This number is simply sigma with all over k Fk. So what you are supposed to do is, you should go to the first lowest k. Let us say k equal to 1 is the first one. Go to that electron. It's something like calling with roll number 1, roll number 2, roll number 3, roll number 4. So 4 electrons I have showed earlier. So if you go to the first electron, how much is the freedom? I wrote there as half. Second electron, I wrote there as 0. Third electron, 0. Fourth electron, half. Like that you do the sum over all possible electrons inside the band. That is one way. But remember, this number is very large. It's something like Avogadro number, which you cannot do physically. So instead of doing this, what we do is we rather do the integration. So it is going to be something integral fk dn, with n running from lowest to top. So you have to do this summation. As we know, fk is this, and we have to do this integration over all possible numbers, roll number 1, roll number 2, like that. You have to do this n. As we know, this n is the number inside the band. K and n are related like this. So what I will do is, I can literally transform this. I can write this as, see, this integration is happening over n. I can also write this as fk dk, because I know dk with k values running from k bottom of the band to k top of the band. Like that, I can do this integration. And you know, this dk can be safely replaced with uh, of course, this dn can be safely replaced with a by 2 pi into dk. So I can write this as a by 2 pi. Why? Because in place of dn, I just used this expression. In place of dn, I wrote a by 2 pi into dk. Of course, plus or minus doesn't matter, because I am counting number. Number is always positive, right? So this is going to be the expression, and please pause the video. So therefore, my n effective number of electrons, free electrons inside a given band, is just integral fk dk with integration limits k 0 to k top with a multiplicative constant a by 2 pi. This integration is going on over a band, given band, right? I can write this simply as a by 2 pi. As we know, fk is given by this. I can write this as, let me write a little lower, a by 2 pi. Integral is running over m by h cross square d square e over dk square multiplied by dk with limits when you take a band k bottom and k top. These are the limits. I can also write this as, you know, if you take this, you can also write it as d by dk of dE by dk. So if you write like this expression is going to be a by 2 pi multiplied by k bottom to k top. Of course, I can pull this m also outside, m by h cross square also outside. So what am I left with is d by dk of dE by dk multiplied by dk. So dk gone. And you know, this is integration over k, and this is derivative over k. So can't you cancel out this d by dk and the integral separately, right? So as the differentiation and integration are complementary to each other, so I can write this expression totally as m a by 2 pi into h cross square with integration is gone now. What I can do is times dE by dk with k top and k bottom. Usually k bottom of the band, if you take as 0, in that case you can put simply 0 here, or you can leave it as a k bottom also if you are dealing with different cases. This is one thing. Here you have to remember one more thing. Pauli will come into picture. So Pauli's principle says one state or one number can be allotted to 2 electrons. So these are the effective number of electrons. So one upspin and one downspin is possible in each state. So you have to multiply this by 2, because one state can be given to 2 electrons. If that is the case, my n effective is just going to be 2m a by pi h cross square into dE by dk with slope at k top and k bottom. Right? This is the n effective. This is a useful expression. So I'll write this there. I want to keep it aside. So please copy this. I'll write it there and erase the board. So finally we got all these things. Now it's time to sketch several parameters. So please pay attention on this graph. So this graph is going to be for several parameters. So here first I will plot E versus K. This is the first diagram. and everywhere I'm just paying my attention only to plus or minus pi by a values of k. So this is sometimes referred as first Brillouin zone. I am not going to go with the details of the other. So here this point is plus pi by a and this point is minus pi by a, that's all. And if you sketch it, it's going to be like this. So this is the E versus K graph in the first Boolean zone. This is the first one. Next one, what am I going to do is I'll sketch dE by dk, the derivative of this graph. Once again, it's a K. Say everywhere K, everywhere plus or minus pi by a are the limits. See, dE by dk is nothing but the slope of this graph. So slope means at every point you have to draw a tangent. So if you draw a tangent like this, here at this point the tangent is parallel to this k axis, and the angle made by the tangent with k axis, if you take the tangent tan theta, I mean if you take this the line and take the tan theta of that line with respect to this axis, that is going to describe the slope. So here of course it is parallel to the k axis, the slope is 0. And if you come to this point, once again the slope is flat. If you draw a tangent here, it becomes flat. So it is once again going to show a 0 here. So another point is this. So first point is this, another point is this. And similarly, if you go to this point, and once again the slope is becoming 0. So three slopes 0. In between, what's happening? So you can see here, if you draw a tangent here, this tangent is in the second and fourth quadrants. You know, tan value in second and fourth quadrant is negative. So in this region, the function will have negative term. And similarly, if you plot something here, this is going to be positive. Slope is positive because it's in first and third quadrants. In first and third quadrant, tan is going to be positive. So it is going to have some maxima over here. If you combine all of them, you are going to get this kind of graph. So this is the dE by dk graph. Now the next one which I am going to plot now is d square E over dk square. So once again it is k, and here I am going to plot d square E over dk square. So the second order derivative. Second order derivative is nothing but d by dk of dE by dk. So if you take this as dE by dk and its derivative means slope of this graph now. So slope of this graph, once again let's check it, how it goes. So at this point, if you start, say if you draw a tangent here, it is going to be like this. So it's once again negative slope. So if you choose this as origin, this is going to be somewhere negative. I'll choose this point. And see here, at this point, the curve has a flat line. So the tangent here goes to flat. So it is a 0 slope. So at this point, I'm going to have a 0. And once again, if you look at this, if you draw a tangent here, so this is going to have positive slope. So tan theta is positive. So in this region and until this point, so here I can have some positive value. I'll denote this as some positive value because you know it is positive. And here you pay attention. So at this point, once again, see the curve has become flat, so slope becomes 0. So this is another point. And once again, if you come back here, so in this region the slope is once again negative, so the curve comes to somewhere here. So you combine all these points. So you are going to see this kind of behavior. This is d square E over dk square. We are not interested in d square E over dk square. Actually, it is representing the fk, degree of freedom, right? Because you can see fk is d square E over dk square apart from a constant, multiplicative constant. So we are not very much interested in. We are interested in n effective. How many number of free electrons are there inside, and also the effective mass m star. So you know m star, it is inverse of this 1 by d square E over dk square. So take the inverse. So here we are going to plot. This is the required one. So here I am going to plot m star, effective mass. M star, actually not plotting m star because m star is having h cross square also. You can imagine that it is proportional. So our multiplicative constants are missing. So 1 by this. So this graph is there. So 1 by this point. See, this point is some negative value because it was the zero axis. Below that it is negative. So negative value you are taking 1 by. So 1 by negative value is definitely negative. So somewhere here I'll choose the point. And you see, this quantity is actually raising. This negative quantity means if you take this as a, let's say 10 minus 10, this becomes minus 6 minus 4 and then back to 0. So the minus value is actually decreasing here, right? The magnitude is decreasing. So in that case, 1 by something which is decreasing, right? So 1 by minus 10 minus 0.1. 1 by, let's say 1 minus 1. So it is minus 1. So 0.1 minus 0.1 and minus 1, if you take, minus 1 will be much lower than minus 0.1. If this is minus 0.1, minus 1 will be somewhere lower. So like that the graph goes this way. And see here at this point it is becoming 0. So 0, 1 by 0. 1 by 0 means infinity. But here there is a problem. When you approach from this side, it is minus 0. When you approach from this side, it is going to be plus 0. So for minus 0, 1 by minus 0, if you take this, it's going to be minus infinity. 1 by plus 0, if you take, it is going to be plus infinity. So the graph has a discontinuity. So this goes something like this. So this the graph goes to the infinity, minus infinity. Now just after that it is coming to plus infinity. So it is going to start somewhere here. I'll choose this as plus infinity. And see, this quantity keeps on increasing until this point. So when the graph, when the magnitude of this increases, actually we are plotting 1 by this graph, d square u over dk square, right? So when d square u by dk square has a maximum here, its inverse is going to have a minima, which is also positive quantity somewhere here. See, this was the plus infinity. It is something like some non-zero positive value. And once again, same logic is applicable to here. At this point, from this side, it approaches to plus infinity somewhere here. And on the other side, it goes to minus infinity from here. And once again, as it is symmetric, you can expect similar kind of variation over here. So this is on the other side. And if you complete this graph, it is going to be something like this. So this is the effective mass of electron. And the surprising thing is, at one particular point, it is mass is becoming infinity also. So there are some point of inflections. So there the slope changes sign. If this is the slope is changing sign. Slope is changing sign because from this side it is becoming negative. From that side it is becoming positive. So this point is a point of inflection, and this is the story of effective mass. Please observe. Effective mass is in this region, it's positive. Remember, we are starting from k equal to 0 here. You focus your attention only to this region. Assume that you have got one student in the college. You have allocated the student with k equal to 1 as roll number. Another student came, you have allotted k equal to 2, k equal to 3. Like that you have started filling the class with electrons. So as we are talking about solid. So you have started filling like this. Then at one particular roll number, because it is k equal to 0, it's 1, 2, 3, so on. At one particular roll number, mass is becoming infinity. Effective mass is becoming infinity. Means that particular state is not allowed because a particle with mass infinity cannot exist. It is not possible, right? So at this site, it is not possible to exist. And if you still fill the electrons after this site, let us say at some 7, as an example only, at some 7, this discontinuity is there. You have 8th seat is there. If you allocate the 8th roll number seat to an electron, it is going to have negative mass, 9, negative mass, 10. Like that, if you keep on increasing the k values, so all these k's will show the effective mass of electron as negative term, right? So these negative term electrons are going to give something strange as what we call as hole, right? So please remember, with lower k values in a band, the electrons will behave like just electrons, and with higher k values in the band, or in other words, if this is the lower part of the band, this is going to be the top part of the band. So until a particular point, if you fill the electrons in the band, they will just behave like normal electrons, and beyond that, if you start filling the electrons, they will just behave like holes, which we will see in a moment. Please copy this diagram. I'll explain it further. So the last article of this chapter is concept of hole. How does this arise? We just now showed that if you look at the effective mass of electron, the effective mass of electron sometimes becoming positive, sometimes becoming infinity, sometimes becoming negative. So if m star is equal to negative, what are the consequences? This consequence is what you call as a hole. Let me explain. As you know, acceleration is nothing but force divided by mass. If you talk about electron, generally electron's acceleration will be that of opposite to that of the external electric field. Let me show you this. Force on the electron is nothing but minus E times electric field E. If you take this force as a vector, see this minus E is the negative charge on the electron. So if electric field is acting towards the right hand side, this negative sign indicates that the force on the electron will be towards the left hand side, right? So these two are opposite. So if you put it here, the acceleration, I'll be calling it as A. A is equal to force, which is minus EE divided by M. Now I'll call this M mass as M star, effective mass. What happens if M star is negative? You can clearly see here. So if this is negative, then minus EE divided by some negative quantity. So negative gets cancelled, and the acceleration A is actually some constant times electric field, positive constant. Or in other words, the acceleration of this particle will be parallel to that of the electric field instead of being opposite. So clearly shows that the electron is no longer behaving like a negatively charged particle, but it is behaving like a positively charged particle. So that positively charged particle is what you call as hole. This is the concept of hole, right? So when you look at the effective mass of electron, in some regions the effective mass tends to negative, and those negative effective mass electrons are what we call as holes. If you recall the previous discussion, there I have plotted the effective mass. I can redraw it once again. So if this is the M star, and if this is the K value, I have showed you that effective mass is going to be like this, and in some regions it's going to be like this. It's actually minus pi by a, and this is going to be plus pi by a. So in between k values lying from k equal to 0, I'll take this as 0. It need not be 0. 0 to up to some point, let's say k dash, all these electrons with these k's, they will behave like normal electrons. But the electrons with the k values greater than this and less than pi by a, they are going to behave like holes. This clearly shows that inside a energy band, always the bottom portions are filled with the normal electrons, whereas if you start filling the electrons, they will get a promotion after a certain k, and they will be promoted to holes. So they will just behave like holes, right? So they will be traveling in the direction of the positive electric field. So they will be traveling parallel to it instead of being anti-parallel. That's why we call them as hole. And also you can understand that M star for hole is going to be a bit larger compared to the normal mass of the electron. So M star clearly shows that these electrons or these holes, they will move little slower compared to the normal free electron, right? So this is the concept of hole, and here I conclude. This completes the chapter of quantum free electron theory and band theory of solids. So the next article is going to be on semiconductor physics. Thank you.